On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. More Q posts. Like, it's just crazy now. Q was silent for so long, and then small post of like 4, and then silent. And so all of a sudden, it's just insane amounts of volumes. But really, one of the big questions that's being pushed right now is there a shadow government, or was there a shadow government, or has there been a shadow government? Is there more going on behind the scenes than meets the eye that Trump's been having to deal with, on top of the blatant push by the left-leaning media, as well as all the Democrats in Congress trying to impeach him and everything else, Russia. So he's been fighting wars on all fronts. And again, many times he's said it before, and I think he'll say it again. It's not me they want, it's you they want. I'm just in the way, meaning him. So let's get into the Q post. There's a lot going on. 4645 is where we left off. What happens if 44 is actively running a shadow command and control shadow presidency operation against the current duly elected president? Let's hypothetically, what if that's happening? What former mid-senior admin officials would need to be involved? What current mid-senior admin officials would need to be involved? What key positions of power would be critical to the operation? How do you finance the operation? So we got a few articles I kind of want to point out before we get too off into the weeds. But one thing that's pointed out is to support the Guardian here. Trump debuts Europe as Obama returns to stir nostalgia for the old days. You know, you read this really long, boring article. Essentially, everyone in Europe was really stoked that Obama was out there. I wish Trump was like you. Oh, but everywhere Trump went, Obama surely followed right behind. In fact, like a day behind when it came to Europe. When we were talking about meeting the world leaders in India and China, the week after Trump was there, this guy decides to show up out there. And also, we have this very strong connection that seems to exist between John Kerry being in Paris at the time and potentially meeting with some Iranians. Now, I say potentially because there are no photographs of him with the Iranians, but there is an eyewitness account, and the person's name is shared. Jason Osborne is the eyewitness, saw them, sat next to them, could hear them talking, took separate pictures got a picture of the Iranians, I think, coming down, and then here's a picture of John Kerry walking away. So this is supposedly the place where the Iranians were, and John Kerry was talking to them, and there was an entire security detail and all this stuff. The guys noticed all sorts of interesting stuff. And again, this was the picture that Jason Osborne once again posted, this gentleman right here. And I remember when this happened, but just got pictures of 3 Iranians who met with John Kerry yesterday. They are entering in the hotel, the Prince de Gales. Anyone know who they are? And they've got some responses back. The Iranian dissident named M. Hanif Josseri, sure, right? He's supposedly the Iranian's foreign affairs minister, Kamal Khazri, was also part of this. So definitely a couple people from an eyewitness were supposedly having lunch, a talk, whatever, with this guy, had armed security, had a whole entourage involved with these Iranians. So something potentially happened. Hard to prove, but again, so these are the questions that are being put out. So FBI mid-senior officials terminated to date. DOJ mid-senior officials terminated to date. Pentagon mid-senior officials terminated to date. NatSec, National Secretary Security, mid-senior officials terminated to date. State Department mid-senior officials terminated to date. Exec Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, Director of National Intel, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Treasury. All of these groups have lost people. Now, everyone's talked about how Trump's this crazy madman and how he's just firing, nobody wants to work for him, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, he's had just all sorts of enemies surrounding him from the get-go. He was being spied on prior to, and as we're going to find out, a whole lot of other crappy things happened right before he assumed control of this ship. So again, we've lost a whole bunch of people. The U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York, that was a big one, by the way. Once he finally got out of the way, all sorts of things started to happen. Ghislaine Maxwell got picked up almost immediately. Weiner's laptop is there. I think some of the Hillary Clinton stuff is there. So again, a lot of things started moving once just getting that dude out of the way. Inspector General for Intel Communications or Intel Comms, State Department Inspector General, Special Rep for Ukraine negotiations, the AMB, the Ambassador to Ukraine, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Class 1 through 99 Defense. Again, we've talked about this before, in Class 1 through 99 Intel. There are a whole bunch of people that are tied up into this. Now, remember, if you're involved in an insurrection or if you're involved in trying to do anything nefarious against the government, against the president, against these United States, you're in a pretty serious place as far as laws go. Laws start getting laid out very, very precisely for people that are insurgents, for people that are trying to take down the government, for people that are involved in a malicious attempt to take down a duly elected president. So again, all assets are deployed right now, and they truly have nothing to lose because they've already lost. They've already lost. This is that thing where either A, you got a cornered animal and they're just freaking scary as hell because they're cornered and they'll do anything, right? Or even similar to that kind of slash and burn techniques that the Russians were famous for, right? They would pull Hitler or Mussolini into Russia, and they would start to burn and destroy and pillage the areas that they were leaving behind. So when the Germans and the Italians got further and further in, and the winter set in, there was no food, there was no buildings. They froze to death. They got disease. They died. So this slash and burn kind of approach is kind of what the deep state's doing. They're losing, and they're doing everything in their power to either A, win back the power, or B, they're going to go to great lengths to basically try to destroy everything in their path. So treason, sedition, conspiracy, nothing's off the table. We've got information warfare happening like nobody's business, censorship, everything else under the sun. We've got irregular warfare, very true. We've got these things going on in the streets that are awful similar to Nazi Germany. We're going to get into some of that as well. And oddly, that's what they're painting QAnon as. Again, projection is one thing the left does like just beautifully. And it seems that they're oddly unaware of it, but everything they blame on everything else or everybody else is usually some weird projection from inside themselves. The way they view the world is based off of their views inside themselves, how everybody's racist because of their experiences. But again, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything you see is a nail, right? So that's kind of what's happening is these people have it stuck in their heads and they project out onto the rest of us. And this is what they see all around them, but it's not really there. So again, treason, sedition, conspiracy, all these things are happening. We've got infiltration, not invasion. They're taking over from the inside, or we're trying to, and we think we've put a stop to that. A clear and present danger to the United States of America, without a doubt. The shadow presidency of 44, he just continued on being president, and certainly the most corrupt president, quite possibly on record. And more is coming out, so I think he's going to win that handedly. Prevention of power returning to the people. Power. That's what this is all about. That's why it's all in capital letters. Power, control, prevention of accountability. They don't want any of these people to be accountable for what's happening. They don't want any of these street thugs accountable for what's happening. That's how they roll. They don't want accountability. They want to be able to bowl you over. They want to be able to force your behavior. But they don't want you to see what's happening behind the curtain. You cannot force their behavior, but it's okay if they do it to you. So prevention of transparency. Transparency will destroy their entire thing, and that's what's happening today. Information's coming out. People are finding out about things. Eyewitnesses are seeing people meeting with John Kerry. Things are happening. This is definitely, probably, if not, I mean, he says a critical moment in time. I would almost argue to say it's possibly one of the most critical moments in the history of this planet. Now, one thing to talk about is all the different turnover that has happened in the Trump administration, and there's been quite a bit. And I'm not going to waste too much time on this, but just kind of quickly scroll down this list. Now, one thing to remember, RUP is resigned under pressure. So we've got promotions and RUPs, all sorts of people. RUP, Katie Walsh, KT McFarland, Michael Dubicki, Sean Spicer. Again, whole bunch of people have dropped out of just Trump's administration and or been promoted and or been resigned. So again, a lot of people have left Trump's administration, and he's gotten rid of some of these people too. So again, some of these people probably nefarious. Some of these people were promoted into better positions, probably because they proved they could be trusted. And some of them, were kind of set off into different locations. And promotions can also be a way of getting someone out of my hair and maybe put them under somebody that I do trust and let them manage you. So it makes it a little easier sometimes. Post 4646, got a Twitter message here that's being shared with us. Was Special Counsel Mueller brought on to provide cover for illegal 44 spy op? The plus 4 wall POTUS in a non-attack political box. And essentially what they're saying is putting him being attacked from all angles and all sides and not allowing him any real good intel or anything along those lines. Is that why Mueller was put into place? Was this to seek and destroy or to lose any of the incriminating evidence, give them a chance to clean up their mess because they never thought she'd lose? And again, that's what they say here. They never thought she was going to lose, so they were sloppy. It was like you're a partier, you're a kid in high school, you got all your friends over partying, and you leave all the crap out because you pass out in the middle of the night and your parents come home and see it all. Sloppy, right? If you're going to be doing these kinds of things, you need to stay up late, you need to kick in the extra energy and clean up so mom and dad don't find out. Nothing digital is ever really lost. And this is going to come into major play here in a second. This is kind of interesting. Newly released DOJ records show that multiple top members of Mueller's investigation team claim to have accidentally wiped at least 15 phones used during the anti-Trump investigation after the DOJ OIG asked for the devices to be handed over. Oddly, they asked for the devices to be handed over from all the Mueller people, all the investigators, so we could look to see what they were up to. And oddly, a whole bunch of them, all their phones got jacked. They apparently had issues. No, right here, Lisa Page, phone not found. Phone found with DOJ OIG, but according to AM2 on blah, 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 the conversation, the phone was restored to factory settings per email from DOJ OIG contact. So the phone was restored or reset. We had Peter Strzok, who apparently per an email, the phone was in airplane mode, no passcode provided, data unable to be recovered. These guys knew how to block their phones. We got Kevin Kleinsmith. Do these names ring a bell? They might. Kevin Kleinsmith down here, remainders. Let's see, he had screenshots he emailed. There's 3 non-recorded photos, blah, blah, blah. Again, more Kevin Kleinsmith. There's a place in here where I think what they did is if you log in too many times incorrectly, the phone automatically wipes. So a bunch of these people had that happen. So Kevin Kleinsmith, Andrew Weissman, James Quarles, I think I'm saying that right, Greg Andre, and we've got a couple more over here, Brian Richardson, Heather Alpino, Ryan Dickey, Jessica Romero, Wiseman once again, he's popular, Uzo Ansonye, and Kyle Freeney. I think I'm Freeney, I don't know. But again, a bunch of these people working on the Mueller case just magically lost all their records on their phone. That's so weird. Post 4647, the illegal spy campaign of 44, again, that's Obama, for those of you not paying attention, President Trump's 45, just in case you didn't know. The illegal spy campaign of 44 upstream collection went far beyond that of 45S's transition team. Brennan was the lead in all this, and there was foreign assets and 44. So these 3 people, well, foreign assets, however many there were, plus these other 2, did a number on Trump's campaign, continued to spy on him like nobody's business. These were seriously matters of national security. The new president being spied on by foreign adversaries, by people within our own government. A lot of those things just don't add up well at all. Post 4648. We got an anonymous post in here. Q, you always seem to post exactly when I'm most down. Hive mind, thank you, and God bless. And the response is, find peace or solace through prayer. There are good people standing behind you. Have faith in humanity. Have faith in yourself. Nothing can stop what's coming. This is something that's repeated over and over and over. I really believe they know all the things that are actually kind of happening. They know the playbook, and it does seem like, and I don't want to say Trump's 5 steps ahead of everyone. Trump and the support. There are people that approach Trump. Whoever is helping Trump with all of this stuff that's going on, these people seem to be 5 steps ahead of the deep state and continuing to. So when they say nothing can stop what's coming, that is why this ravaged, cornered animal, or these people doing the slash and burn as they get further back into their territory, that is why this is happening. They know they can't stop it. They know they've already lost. They don't want that to be the case. 4649, got another New York Times post here. Worth remembering, infiltration and placement under 44. Now, what's interesting is inquiry of CIA affirms it spied on the Senate panel. This is a pretty long, drawn-out article. Ultimately, it's busting Brennan for spying. And Feinstein actually got mad. So he's apparently spying on senators and the Intelligence Committee. And he's just like, oh, whoops, it was kind of a sort of an accident. And then the more they dug into it, they realized that there was actually people responsible. They wanted to bust people, yada, yada. Apparently, Feinstein's not really fond of being spied on. It's funny, you wouldn't really know that by the way they seem to want to spy on everybody else. Again, projection, right? They don't like it when it happens to them. Two sets of rules. This is the one thing Q and all of us have been talking a lot about. I know everyone wants to post it that we're talking about pedophilia and eating children and all that stuff. That's hardly something we ever talk about. That's really just more for fun. But this is what we're talking about. Two tiers. How unfair things are, how there's lying going on, how we're being spied on, how there's different rules. I mean, it's just ridiculous what we're expected to be okay with. 4650. Now, here's where they really start to paint the fun picture about QAnon and Nazis and all these things. But what's really interesting is what's happening right now is very reminiscent of World War II. And they always frequently say, if you don't understand history or don't know history, history will repeat itself. And I think a lot of people don't truly understand some of these similarities. So in 1933, Hitler appointed Hermann Göring Minister of the Interior. His first orders were to defund and eliminate police. Ring any bells? They're taking it straight out of these guys' playbook. So departments, so that they would not interfere with his brown shirts, who were mission. It was to riot, to burn, to beat up and kill citizens in an effort to sway elections. That's what we learned about World War II after all the stuff that Hitler did during his rise to power. So the truth is right in front of all of us. That history has been there for all of us to see. Coming up on 100 years, 90 years ago almost, right? So, 80 years ago. Still. Long time ago, but still we need to understand knowledge is power. This is how Hitler rose to power and why he used the brown shirts and all of the anti-fascist propaganda that he was doing. Post 4651, fact checkers installed misleading misinformation, deliberate intent to deceive regarding this anti-narrative. They don't want any of these people to see what's going on. So the truth about history attacked or altered or reformatted. The only way they can make this happen is if they alter history, if they start to change what actually happened historically speaking, or at least what was said historically. And they always say history is written by the victors. So again, if they rewrite history, who's going to know? None of us were alive then. All the people that were alive during World War II, there's like maybe 5 people left that are all like 108. It's ridiculous. So the system of information control, how that's worked, this narrative, this population control, how do they control the populace? What are ways to do it? And really a lot of it goes down to that sort of bullying tactic, that sheeple kind of tactic where everybody doesn't want to not be part of the group, right? And when you shun somebody and say, ooh, you're not okay unless you do this, and you go into that negative peer pressure, well, a lot of people respond to that in a very programmed way. And so a lot of the population's very easy to round up. And obviously this BLM movement and all this nonsense is certainly playing largely into that. So events then, events today, seriously, it is like repeating the same thing over again. So one of the articles that they mention here, they're talking about the Gestapo. Now, the Gestapo was actually a mixture of this, I'm bad with German, I apologize, but Geheim Polizei MNT, whatever that is, or whatever. But it's the Gestapo is the first letters of these names. And it talks about how they were basically a force that was going around, and they were if you didn't just talk openly about how the Nazi movement was bad because you might get a tap on the shoulder, you might have someone show up in the middle of the night. You had these police groups that were community police groups that basically ran around and pulled people out of their homes into the middle of the night. People that were religious, people that were Jewish, people that were homosexual. There was a whole slew of people that they went after. And they really did not care who you were, right? If you weren't part of this ideal race, part of this ideal group, you ended up in a camp. And that's when they had to start storing camps because the jails weren't big enough. And so they started to build these concentration camps. And this is how their entire rise to power happened. Now, what we're doing right now that's identical to this is by defunding police and using community police. That is what the Gestapo was. They were the community police. This is exactly where they're trying to take us. And then we're going to have people that come in and take us in the middle of the night, or come in and confiscate our weapons in the middle of the night, or come in again. That's why they wanted a gun registry. Thank God there's a lot of people that aren't registered, probably. And that's not okay. And it's not appropriate, whatever. Or if it is legal, I don't know. Here, I know I got to do it. I know I show up on record. So again, it's one of those things where you've got to be a little careful. And again, the second article is just about the Gestapo. Again, the abbreviation of this thing that I can't say, that secret police. It was political Nazi Germany's police, and they basically used it to stop any opposition. It was brutal. People were afraid to talk. And this was, I think, one of the things that I wanted to share here. The Gestapo operated without civil restraint. It had no authority. It had, the authority of preventative arrests, and its actions were not subject to judicial appeal. Thousands of leftists, intellectuals, Jews, trade unionists, political clergy, and homosexuals simply disappeared into concentration camps after being arrested by the Gestapo. Now, just understand that some of the people that currently right now are falling into nice little wonderful categories on the left, you may not always be safe over there. That's something I kind of want you to think about, because they went after homosexuals back during World War II in Nazi Germany. And to think this exact same ideology is not what's currently happening. They just haven't made you a target yet. But this will happen in time. Very few people will end up being safe when it comes to this. People have put Black Lives Matters on their signs, and the rioters still come through and burn their buildings. They don't care. Post 4652 got another awesome article to check out. Knowing what you know now. Let's check this out. So Obama opens an NSA vast trove of warrantless data to entire intelligence community just in time for Trump. Yeah, no, seriously, no kidding. January 13, 2017, Donald Trump takes office, and Obama basically opens up all of these. Here it was right here. Executive Order 12333, or often referred to as 12333, has attracted less debate than congressional wiretapping laws, but serves as authorization for the NSA's most massive surveillance programs, far more than the NSA's other programs combined. Under 12333, the NSA taps phone and internet backbones throughout the world, records phone calls of the entire countries, vacuums up traffic from Google and Yahoo data centers overseas, and more. The largest shared information. So as he hands the White House to Trump, Obama just unchained NSA from basic limits on passing raw intercept to others. They opened up the ability to share this information with everybody, so long as I guess you had some sort of security clearance at all. But it sounds like they were sharing this all over the place. Do you think that was weaponized against Trump? Do you think that's why they did it? Yes. From the minute they knew they lost the election until the minute that Trump took over office, they were constantly busy trying to take away his powers, put protections in place, and make sure that he wasn't able to figure out what has been going on and what's supposed to happen. Post 4653. So in the past 12 hours, we've got a sensitive subject, maybe, over the target, maybe. And the reason they're saying that is, look at all these articles that are talking about Q, and they do it all in the same way. QAnon is a Nazi cult rebranded. A secret cabal is taking over the world. The kidnap children, slaughter and eat them to gain power from their blood. They control high positions in government, banks, international finance, the news media, and the church. They want to disarm the police. They promote homosexuality and pedophilia, really. And they plan to mongrelize the white race so it will lose its essential power. Experts on genocide and anti-Semitism lays out the frightening parallels between QAnon and Hitler's Nazis on the AlertNet. What about over here on Newsbreak? In QAnon, Nazism wants a comeback. Anti-Semitism expert reveals parallels between QAnon and Nazism. News at 11. What about Salon News? Well, there's a name you can trust. In QAnon, Nazism wants a comeback. Anti-Semitism experts reveal parallels between QAnon and Nazism. And there are parallels between QAnon's conspiracy theories and the anti-Semitism Adolf Hitler and his Nazis promoted. What's so funny is they're comparing the QAnon movement to Nazis, which is where Antifa was, where the brown shirts were. Again, projection. They do it. They're masters at it. They're super good at, here's what I'm guilty of. I'm going to now accuse my enemy of doing what I'm doing. And then everyone will think he's doing it. And it has worked very well. I actually missed this one. The frightening parallels between QAnon and Hitler's Nazis. So again, and they happened to choose this one picture where there were a lot of Confederate flags. And really that is, I know, disrespectful to some people of color. And I understand why, not cool. But that being said, that's the worst thing going on over here. Okay, they're not burning anything. They're not attacking anybody. They may have offensive t-shirts that have like a middle finger on it. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Shut up. 4654. We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded. Now, one thing that's always fun when people make quotes like this is you're like, well, did he actually say it? Because first off, they didn't even put it in quotation marks. You don't really even know. Well, we actually have him saying it, believe it or not. And well done, Midnight Rider, as they bring it forward one more time. And again, showing this wonderful 1933 picture. I've cut it at a perfect place just at the end, so it'll be like 12 seconds. I should be able to get away with that. We'll see. We're going to see, because YouTube's like, if you get much over 15, you might get in trouble.
We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Right, so that's all I'm going to play of that, just so I can make sure to keep this video going. But again, he said it, his words. Not looking good for him. Post 4655, got a couple more posts. Why are the Ds providing safe zones for Antifa to operate? Is this coordinated? Read the playbook, right? And again, it looks very interesting, especially Wheeler. Wheeler is so guilty, and that DA is so guilty of so much bad stuff. It is just insane. So we're going to share some of this traitor's words, man. I mean, I don't know what else to call him. I mean, I don't like being mean to people, but this guy seriously does not care about his own people. He is part of this deep, dark conspiracy, I'm pretty sure. So Mayor Ted Wheeler announced that as police commissioner, he is banning the Portland police from using tear gas under all circumstances. They were previously restricting to using it only on life safety emergencies, such as when rioters do arson attack, but not even that anymore. Going to take away that even. Pretty sure they're going to take away any option for the police to do anything. What is he trying to do? Let's hear this.
It's time for everyone to reduce the violence in our community. We all want change. We all have the opportunity and the obligation to create change. We all want to focus on the fundamental issue at hand, justice for Black people and all people of color. That's why, as police commissioner, effective immediately and until further notice, I'm directing the Portland Police Bureau to end the use of CS gas for crowd control. I commend the preliminary work that the Oregon State Legislature has done to convene experts to evaluate the use of gas and what safer alternatives may exist that prevent the need for greater force. I commit the City of Portland to full participation in these reforms and encourage the legislature to complete this work as soon as possible. During the last 100 days, Portland, Multnomah County, and state police have all relied on CS gas where there's a threat to life safety. We need something different, and we need it now. Arson, vandalism, and violence are not going to drive the change this community needs. I expect the police to arrest people who engage in criminal acts. I expect the district attorney to prosecute those who commit criminal acts. And I expect the rest of the criminal justice system to hold those individuals accountable. We must stand together as a community against violence and for progress. I call on everyone to step up and tamp down the violence. I'm acting. It's time for others to join me.
So one of the things that I think a lot of us are questioning right now is these mayors are doing these kinds of behaviors, trying to get their police chiefs to quit. And we've seen it happen in Rochester. We've seen it happen now in Portland. And I think it's happening in Seattle. It's happening in a few places. And then that means that the mayors become the police chiefs, which is what they wanted all along, isn't it? And so here we've got a man that's basically letting criminals run wild, do whatever they want, and then tying the hands behind the back of the actual people that are expected to enforce it. And then he says, I want the DAs to prosecute, but that's not happening. The DAs coming out and telling everybody that they're not going to stand for that. And in fact, now Portland's enacted the most stringent facial recognition technology ban in the US, barring public, some private use. So Portland City Council members voted unanimously on Wednesday to prohibit the public and in some cases private use of facial recognition technology, making it the most stringent ban of its kind nationwide. Now, for you that don't quite understand what this means, facial recognition is how they've caught many of the criminals. Many of them. It's been through facial recognition software. A lot of these people have masks. It's been distinguishing body marks, tattoos, things like that have helped identify some of these people. So it's interesting how that's playing out. Also, hundreds of protesters, this came out a month ago, but hundreds of Portland protesters will see their criminal cases dropped as DA announces plans to recognize the right to speak. So, yep, this district attorney, Mike Schmidt, that we all just love, he's leaning on a group of community representatives he called his transition team and announced Tuesday that his office will drop most of the charges filed against Portland protesters. Most of them. And he's still calling them protesters. Not the rioters, protesters. So again, this is what we've got. We've got a guy that's saying, no, I'm really going to do something about it, but he's not. And then he ties his hands to everybody else that can't, so they can't do anything about it. And he just keeps letting it spill out into the streets. Now, when they get mad and they go into Ted Wheeler's own house, his condo, and they're hanging out there, well, shucks, all of a sudden, Ted's neighbors are getting nervous and they're saying, hey, bud, can you move? So he moves and doesn't tell anybody where he's going. Why, Ted? Why are you afraid of all these wonderful, non-violent people? They just want to talk and sing Kumbaya and make s'mores. That's all. I'm sure they're perfectly good-meaning people, just like you keep saying. And all you got to do is just say, hey, stop being violent. And it works every time. Just watch. 4656. Complicit. That's what these guys are too. Complicit. So it's an adjective. It's associated with or participating in a questionable act or a crime. Having complicity. Or supporting, which can also be associated with or participating in an activity, especially one of a questionable nature. So by helping, by allowing, by enabling, you are essentially complicit. Now, we also get a wonderful little definition. Renegade, as everyone probably remembers, that was Obama's code name that he gave himself. They say, hey, what's the code name you want to go by? And he's like, renegade. And what is a renegade? Well, frankly, it's a noun, just in case you weren't sure. It's a person who deserts a party or cause for another, an apostate from a religious faith, adjective, of or like a renegade, traitorous. Boy, that does sound like Obama in a nutshell. I mean, if a nut like him was to have a shell, that's certainly what it would sound like. 4657, debates. So the big debate question, obviously, there's three potentialities that they're calling out here. And I think everybody knows the debates are never going to happen the way they were supposed to. That's just a given, right? There's no way that's going to happen. So the first option, Biden camp will find an excuse or reason to terminate. Maybe he gets sick. Maybe something happens. Maybe he stubs his toe. I don't know. Maybe his double barrel shotgun did something funny. Who knows? Or two, Biden camp will provide the questions ahead of time. So they will agree that, well, let's give you the questions that I think you should ask me, and I'll have some answers prepared for those. How's that sound? And they'll be like, that sounds great, Biden. What about Trump? We'll just make stuff up and try to make it hard on him. Okay. Or three, Biden camp is going to provide the questions ahead of time and assistance in the form of special communication device, which could very well be like a two-way between him and the newscaster, or it could be any number of things, him having some help behind the scenes, people that are talking in his ear saying, hey, dude, say this, all right? We're going to start playing music and you just dance like you're supposed to. Weekend at Bernie's. 4658. Facebook, Twitter using DARPA-provided software to censor and restrict picture content using matching. So think reverse image, upload, one, find, locate, all, cycling. So I'm going to try to explain this a little bit to you here. And Q goes to great lengths to try to explain it to us. So I'm going to kind of go through that, and then I'm going to give my little spiel. I used to work at a place that actually made software, and it's kind of an industry leader at image capture. And there's kind of a technology that a lot of these things use. And so this is why what his recommendations are should work. And then again, that's only going to buy us 2 to 4 days, and there's going to be more updates to follow. So let's get into some of what he's talking about here. So what we're getting into is post 4659. The easiest way to recrop an image slightly smaller or slightly larger. Another is just to place pixels within the picture, as one black pixel usually fools software like this unless it is more advanced. So again, by changing the size of a picture from the one that was originally posted, the one that originally was posted is known. The databases know about it, and they know it's a bad image. We don't like that image. That's a bad image. It's the one of him kissing the girl or whatever, right? So if you make it a little bit bigger, it no longer has the same signature. When it serializes that image, there's now more bytes, there's now more information, there's now more pixels. So it's got a different signature. And that's why it doesn't look the same. When you make it smaller, conversely, you reduce the amount of pixels and thusly make the signature smaller. Again, that's just one of the examples of how this kind of works. This is also what he's kind of talking about. And this was an anonymous source posting there, like saying like this, like picture 1 or like picture 2, right? Where you got a couple black dots in an otherwise white picture. So they're suggesting one other thing you can do is to take these images, leave them the same size, and then place black dots or squares in the corners. And by doing that, you create more than 20% change of the image. The image is now 20% different, and it's too far outside the norms to be considered the same picture or to be considered a problem. Now, again, it's learning software. So if you put the black X's and then someone else copies that image and someone else uses it and someone else uses it, very quickly the software is going to figure out there's something up with this image, and it will get smarter. And that's kind of what he's talking about. So what he was saying is 1 is sufficient. Choice 1. This was picture 2 down here, 2.png versus 1.png. He's like, 1's cool. Do that. That's 20% total. That's pretty much what you're going for. Post 4661. So given this information, how much time do we have before they adopt? So he's asking, okay, so we've got this cool little trickery that we're planning on doing. How long until the AI figures it out? And he's basically saying 2 to 4 days. They're going to deploy a centralized picture frame approach next, which means they kind of shoot just the center part of the picture. And by shooting just the center part of the picture and ignoring the size and all the other things, they can kind of take away some of these options. Now, I think that's still somewhat problematic if you change the size of the image, but changing the size of the image can also make it problematic for those who want to view it. So there's kind of a catch-22 there. So again, they're going to figure out how to get around this. But for right now, this is how the memes are going to need to move forward. So instructions are going to follow on how to do this. Post 4662. Would a Q in the corner do the trick? Again, people are thinking, hey, by putting something in the corner, does that do it? And it really doesn't, because you're not changing it enough. And that's really what he's saying, negative, regarding artifact insertion, 4-corner direct center approach. And so, yeah, by putting little letters in there, it's just not enough of a change to really be able to call it out. 4663, so a circle within the square. Program hits 32 identifying structural points. If 20% of those points fail to hit, program passes as safe. 5 by 5? So basically, again, what he's saying is there's a lot of people saying, so what if I just do a circle? What he's trying to say is if you take the original photo, okay, and if you're doing a circle, are you taking out the corners by doing that? That's probably going to work. Now, will that work when they go to the centralized thing in 2 to 4 days? No, your circle's not going to work anymore. But will the circle kind of work because you've removed the edges, you've changed the size, you've changed the signature? Yeah, that'll work. So again, he's like, you just got to change the picture 20%. You've got to make it different from what it was, and it will fail the AI. Because again, it's outside of, if a picture's signature seems more than 20% different, probably not the same picture, right? Like at some point, you got to draw a line in the sand and say, yeah, anything that's over this, it's close enough for all I care about. Anything under that, nah, it's probably different. So that's where we're going to have some fun with this. 4664. We've got a great little article that was shared with us. Excellent Q. You should ask, as should every American. I've got a great little Fox News here talking about this DARPA-funded AI-driven information warfare tool to target pro-Trump accounts. Literally, they're going after Trump people. And that is exactly what is happening. So the Washington Post first reported that the initiative called Defeat Disinfo will utilize artificial intelligence and network analysis to map discussion of the president's claims on social media and then attempt to intervene by identifying the most popular counter narratives and boosting them through a network of more than 3.4 million influencers across the country. In some cases, paying users with the large following to take sides against the president. Now, This is the same thing when they say, well, those are just Republican talking points. Yeah. The thing that what happens is when we start doing our quote Republican talking points, they find a counter narrative to that, and then they spread that amongst all their platforms. Now, since everybody on the left is so heavily zombied, right? So I will do what I'm told. When an idea is popped at them, especially one that's a counter idea to a popular Trump movement, they get all excited that they can now argue that point. So this software is looking for ways to attack, or even probably allows people to go, okay, well, here's an idea how we can attack this narrative that the Trump supporters are using. And then this software can push that out to all the locations, as well as identifying if other Republican people are using the same talking points, and then maybe start to bury their listings. Again, there's a whole lot of games that are going into play, but this is a DARPA, the Advanced Research Project Initiative, or I don't know, whatever the hell it stands for. It's our super crazy stuff that we invent. DARPA's awesome. They make really cool stuff. Finally, our last post, I think, 4665. This one's pretty incredible. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet, we have this consolidation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Thomas Paine, The American Crisis, in Q. So again, a lot of us are supporting this movement. There's a lot of us that realize something is afoot. There's a lot of us that have relatives that served. There's a lot of us that have served ourselves. And there's a lot of us that truly appreciate the freedoms that these men and women that have come before us and that will come after us will fight for. Well, they'll only come after us if we succeed now. We are working and fighting for the freedom of the entire planet. Not just America, but everybody. This tyranny is deep in a lot of countries. Australia, England, China, come on, Iran. Look at kind of North Korea, sort of puppets, right? We've got all these different, France, Germany, all these different countries that are involved and getting involved and have their own set of agendas that are pretty harsh right now. There's a huge push to take away our freedoms. Where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.